At the close of autumn in 196, the war between the Shu Han Empire and the Kingdom of Wu began in earnest. Travelling up the Yangtze from Lujiang, Xiahou swept into Changsha Commandery to seize all the ships he could find. Changsha was Wu's western stronghold, from which renegade king Sun Ce could invade all manner of fragile imperial holdings if he wished. Securing any boats Wu might use to cross the Yangtze was the first crucial step to victory, and plugging up Changsha was the second. To begin with, Xiahou met no resistance. Such was the activity in the south. In the north, Liu Bei was heading east along the Yellow River, and found that enemies had already crossed down into the central plains near Luoyang. They were men from Zhangjiang's mountain kingdom, and while they did not last long against the imperial army, it brought Liu Bei no pleasure to see their banners fall. She was so dedicated to the Han, but at the first excuse she's rejected the emperor's will and carried on like a bandit, Liu Bei lamented. She was a fierce match for you, your majesty, Zhuge Liang said. You and her were like tigers locked in a cave. Seeing you go free, how can she be content to wait? It is not a matter beyond most, Liu Bei shot back. Had she not lied to me before, I would never have trusted her. There is no one in the land the emperor can trust without doubt, yet you must have them trust you. Their trust is collected like a tithe, but returned like a loan. How easily this tower of pebbles tumbles. Liu Bei dismissed Zhuge Liang from his chamber and bid he practice his fragrant rhetoric elsewhere. He did, visiting various well-known thinkers in the Luoyang area and being cast out of their homes also, always with a smirk on his face. Such was the nature of a would-be recluse. That winter, the city of Xiangyang received a visit from the very woman causing Liu Bei's consternation. Queen Zhang had seized the local commandery and was now preparing siege equipment to storm the city. However, she was quick to pack up and depart when General Le Bu marched down from the mountains, making a timely return from the campaign against the Yellow Turbans. She fled into the countryside of Jing, where she was like a bee trapped between two hands. At Langye, Zhang Fei was done mopping up Yuan Shao's invasion force, and was now quick to return the sentiment. He took his troops into the Dong Hills, and found men assembled against him at the ironworks. He sent for some villagers to learn more, and an entire village was brought before him. None had dared refuse a summons from Zhang Fei, much less in his station as imperial brother. It was revealed that the troops in the ironworks were reserves waiting for Yuan Shao to arrive personally, and as such had no baggage and no leader. However, they begged that the ironworks be left alone. They claimed that after the Yellow Turbans took over the commandery, the ironworks were used to provide tools for the locals, and paying work also. Yuan Shao had arrived with an army and burnt the place down in an enraged stunt the previous year. Now the place had been re-established under Yuan family control, and while the locals could no longer rely on its products, the government workers who were sent there made up a lucrative market for food and wine. "You admit yourselves that those ironworks are owned by the rebel Yuan?" Zhang Fei snapped back at them. "How could I call myself a general of the empire if I let his cronies carry on there? Ridiculous! I would rather burn it to the ground than betray the empire. How dare you come here and ask this of me?" Zhang Fei ordered the entire delegation executed, but Zhu Shu hurriedly begged him to reconsider. He was eventually talked down to just imprisoning a few, and then he turned his attention to the enemy. He stomped his men up to the ironworks through driving snow. House Yuan banners rushed about here and there, and no one came out to meet them. Archers and crossbowmen moved in and shot towards the banners wherever they could be seen. There were cries and shouts coming from inside, fading in volume as the evening turned to night. The snowfall ceased and the clouds began to part, revealing a full moon. Its light had the snow-covered earth aglow, illuminating piles of bodies beneath those still standing banners. Delighted, Zhang Fei ordered men inside to investigate further. There they felt the ground shake. Suddenly, bands of armoured riders appeared from twisting streets and charged. It was a formidable attack, but Zhang Fei's troops were veterans and had been trained for months by Xu Shu. They closed ranks and hid behind their shields, creating boxes that the horses shied away from. The charge was thus halted, and then all at once spears and swords were raised against the riders. Pressing forwards, the Yuan cavalry were pulled from their horses or killed where they sat. After such a display, the rest of the Yuan army emerged from hiding places all around and surrendered. While it was only a minor victory, Zhang Fei had captured a position that Yuan Shao himself was said to be marching towards. Careful preparations for a decisive clash could now be made. With plans in action to secure the central plains in the north and south, it was a strike from within to which Liu Bei was now vulnerable. Zhang knew it well, and swept through Jing at a rapid pace, taking whatever supplies she needed from the helpless towns and villages. But then she came upon a fortified outpost in Nanyang Commandery, where some Liu troops had gathered under a local merchant. Zhang surrounded them before they knew it, and they were forced to fight their way out. Those with horses raced to break through, and caught some of the Queen's followers unawares. Yet the difference in numbers was too great. Whenever they smashed out of one melee, they were at once surrounded again and plunged back into the struggle. For the infantry left behind, victory was their only exit. They lined up and faced off against constant raids, ducking behind their shields to hide from the arrows that fell in the intermissions. Zhang had no stomach for a long standoff, and simply rode out into the Liu formation herself. With a huge battle axe, she cleaved her way in, and it was clear why the old Han administration in Bingzhou had ceded control to her personal enterprise. Alone, she faced down the Emperor's militia.
"Fools, why are you fighting for him? Just give me your supplies and you can live. You are nothing," she shouted at them.
"The Emperor will bring peace to heaven and earth," was one answer. "You do not understand the meaning of loyalty," was another. "Emperor Dongfeng cares for us all. Once this war is over, things will finally get better," a third voice insisted.
"So, that's what you really want?"
Zhang barked. Clearly it was not, but enough advocated for fighting that the rest dared not leave.
"I am here because my people cannot bear the Empire's weight any longer. The Han was destined to end, but your lord carries it like a thief dragging a golden carriage. You bumpkins must enjoy living under a boot. And who am I to tell you to change your mind? If all you want to do is what the usurper Liu says, then you can die content right here."
Zhang quit the fight, her taste for the battle spoiled by the shallow will of her opponents. Her soldiers moved in and gradually uprooted all the Liu supporters, but the fighting was nothing short of desperate. The Liu men repeated their cries that the Emperor would bring about an end to the suffering of the common people. It was a cry easily repurposed from the time of the Great Yellow Turban Rebellion. One of Queen Zhang's commanders was pierced through by a thrown spear, and in all 3/4 of her troops lay dead or wounded at the close of the day. In the face of such fanaticism, she saw there was nothing she could do to overturn Liu Bei's support. Furthermore, Liu Bu had tracked her down with an army at his back. Hopeless, Queen Zhang fled, but Liu Bu saw that very few of her followers escaped with her. Thus, by the base loyalty of the common people, Emperor Dongfeng's realm remained intact. Liu Bei could not have been more overjoyed at the news. Not only did this prove to him that the people had been cured of their ails, but it demonstrated how good, whatever that might be, was destined to triumph over bad. That Zhang had lived and been humbled provided opportunities also. With internal defense secured, now the projects on the northern and southern rivers could command full attention. In Changsha, Xiahou achieved stunning success, although not by any particular merit. He had marched straight from the Yangtze down to the huge metropolis of Changsha City and found it undefended. This incredible stroke was on account of the Wu army in the region being on the offensive in the southwest. There they could claim all the victories they wanted over impoverished rural communities, loyal to the Han only because there was no thinkable alternative. Yet that would achieve nothing strategically. The capture of Changsha, on the other hand, gave Xiahou Dun and his emperor control over the military and economic affairs of western Wu. While decisive battle would have to be sought, no longer did Wu have the leverage to break into Jing. Once the reports arrived, Liu Bei rushed to Zhuge Liang and bowed before him. "Your strategy has delivered us from the edge of destruction," Liu Bei said. "Your Majesty, it was nothing any student of military arts could not have produced." "If that were so, this realm would be ruled by scholars," Liu Bei remarked. Zhuge Liang could only deploy his usual wry smile in response. "You need fear not, Your Majesty," he said. "For in reality it is wild, fiery spirits that brought us here. I speak of Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Xiahou Dun, Zhao Yun, and Liu Bu. These 5 generals are like the 5 elements. Together they can encompass heaven and earth. Prime Minister, could it be that in these 5 paragons we have the ones we need to rule this empire without worry?" Liu Bei asked. "Your Majesty, you forget your place. To ask a warrior to rule is like asking a table to fly. This empire has always had 3 heads: the warriors, the scholars, and the nobles. Without warriors, nobles and scholars are only voices in the crowd. Without scholars, warriors and nobles defy heaven. Without nobles, warriors and scholars fragment the realm. Therefore, as a noble, maintaining the balance is as paramount as breathing." "But Master Sleeping Dragon, were not all those things in order when the empire fell?" Liu Bei said, thinking his point undoing of Zhuge Liang's argument. But strangely, Zhuge Liang laughed and clapped. "You are further along than most," he said. "Yes, they were in order, yet they fell away as if shaken through a net. Yes, the empire can have 5 tiger generals, 5 great schools, and a family with 5 good men. But what are all these without—" Zhuge Liang looked to Liu Bei. "Without virtue?" he ventured. "But what is the source of virtue?" "The source? You mean heaven?" "Far from it. Acts of virtue benefit heaven, not a mote." "But they benefit the people." "Yes, exactly!" Zhuge Liang clapped again. "They are the source of virtue, or Tao. The Tao forms nobles, nobles raise warriors, warriors reflect scholars, scholars comprehend the people, and the people create the Tao. This is the way of a perfect state. But in this troubled time, nobles raise nobles, warriors rely on scholars, scholars pity the people, and the people's Tao sails away like a cloud. This is the way of a state doomed to break apart." Liu Bei sat astounded at this analysis. Unable to grasp it, he merely asked, "Prime Minister, your wisdom is unrivaled and your vision of a perfect state ingenious. Please guide me towards an empire that can never fall." "I will, Your Majesty," Zhuge Liang nodded. The Prime Minister was fully satisfied with such progress, although he worried that the far harder part of his task was yet to come. Back in Dong, Zhang Fei had prepared an ambush for the approaching Yuan Shao. He insisted upon setting up the catapults on the road, but that would spoil the surprise, and so Xu Shu had covered his machinations in tree branches. Thus it appeared like the road forked around a copse of trees, but when Yuan Shao's marching column approached it, the facade of leaves was torn down by Zhang Fei himself. Booming with laughter, he shouted, "Now that you have all fallen for this children's game, you will get what you deserve!" The horns were sounded, and from the woods and snow beside the road, the rest of the Liu army sprang out. Yuan Shao was riding at the very front, but was dragged back by his bodyguards. Zhang Fei appeared to be riding straight for him, but then he rode right on to the column's center. He was trained on a banner that read General Wen Chou, Champion of Yan. Beneath it was this Wen Chou, Yuan Shao's top general. He was at that time already in battle with Huang Gai, but the latter gave his superior officer the honor and withdrew. Wen Chou was known for his immense strength and wielded a bulky 2-handed mace, easily the size and weight of an ordinary man. But what could it do against the matching strength of Zhang Fei, or the superior reach of the serpent blade spear? The point drove through the front of Wen Chou's open-faced helmet, dashing Yuan Shao's hopes of rescue. The Yuan troops were trying to scatter from the road, but Zhang Fei's men were all about, with traps and horses aplenty. It was a dire situation, and Yuan Shao's lead advisor Xu You knew it. He grabbed a horse and tried to make off on his own. However, his path was blocked by a man in light clothing, holding a bow in one hand and an arrow in the other. It was strategist Xu.
Brother, we share the same name, and we would have walked together in ancient times. For the sake of our bond, won't you let me pass?
Xu You begged. Xu lowered his weapon and was about to respond, but then there was a loud growl, followed quickly by Xu You's head thumping down into the snow.
No point taking prisoners. Don't let anyone escape,
Zhang Fei scolded Xu, picking up the head with the point of his spear. Xu agreed, and took additional troops to see about trapping Yuan Shao. Strangely, Yuan Shao was not trying to flee. His whole army was gone, and he alone remained on the road with his sword held high. Tears ran down his face as he cut this way and that, overcoming the soldiers who approached him. While this dejected struggle went on, he was surrounded by the shields and spears of the reforming Liu army. Now there was no way out. Still, he clacked his sword against the wall of shields around him, unable to accept his fate. Finally, a sweep of the serpent blade spear split a few fingers from his hand, and his weapon cracked into the muddy ice underfoot.
You thought it would end any other way,
Zhang Fei said.
Traitors and rebels, all of you. You've no idea what my family has done for the House of Han,
Yuan Shao bawled.
You are nothing but degenerate dogs, making a mockery of those that feed you. I'll see you.
His tirade ended when Zhang Fei grabbed him, threw him to the ground, then picked up the dropped sword. Unceremoniously, he slashed, taking several attempts to behead his target.
The traitor Yuan is dead! Long live Emperor Dongfang!
He eventually declared, showing off the head for all of his cheering troops to see. Lord Zhang, should we not have sent him away to the Emperor first? Xu asked, but Zhang Fei shot him a fiery look.
My brother told me to exterminate those who hold power without virtue. If I spared his life, how many other self-centered idiots would try to rise up? Now go while I still feel like sparing you.
At this, Xu scurried away. With Yuan Shao dead and his newest attempt to invade Shuhan completely foiled, the threat to Liu Bei's capital and most loyal commanderies was quashed. And indeed it all seemed to be a sign of heavenly favour, which only deepened those parasocial loyalties. 4 of Liu Bei's 5 great generals had now rendered monumental service in the War of the Three Kingdoms. Guan Yu had ensured victory over Ma Teng. Lu Bu had sent Zheng Jiang fleeing home alone. Xiahou Dun had seized any means of invasion Wu might use. And Zhang Fei had cut Yuan Shao's invading army apart from foot to head. Only Zhao Yun was yet to achieve an equally meritorious triumph. Keenly aware of this, he had taken his army to search out Liu Biao in Jiangshi. Doing so, he came upon the site of his previous campaign in the region. The village he had burned was crawling with soldiers, and upon further investigation, it was revealed that Liu Biao himself was leading efforts to rebuild what was lost. How would Zhao Yun deal with the rebels this time? Read on.